Good morning. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. It's not uncommon to hear life sure is strange, and it is. Life is not something you can see, hear, smell, taste, or touch. Life is something that you experience. Life is something expressed to a greater or lesser degree with one person or another, and you have personal power. Bob Proctor was my mentor, and he said, what you and I refer to as life is really an invisible power that flows to and through us. Our lives can be expressed in a very shallow, bland manner, or it can be vibrant and enthusiastic. The invisible power we refer to as life operates in much the same manner as electricity. No one knows what electricity is. We simply have a little knowledge of what it does. There's a law in electricity called Ohm's law. Among other things, it states that the amount of current that will flow in an electrical current will always be inversely proportional to the resistance in the current. In other words, the less resistance, the more current that will flow. The more resistance, the less current. Not only can you increase or decrease the flow of electricity, you can use it for destructive or constructive means. Bob Proctor used to say, you can use electricity to cook a man's dinner or to cook a man. That's the amount of electricity that's flowing through a current. And the less resistance, the more current. When you're less resistant, you have more current flowing through you, more power. You are an instrument through which this life power flows. When you are resistant, you limit the flow of that power. Just think for a moment about plugging in or turning on or tapping in to that fabulous, miraculous power that we call life energy. Well, so what is resistance? There's so many names for resistance, how we can be resistant to this fantastic, powerful life energy flowing through us. Resistance could be doubt, denial, fear, worry. These will dramatically limit the flow of life flowing through you. When you remove the resistance, this power has the ability to make an entirely new life. It's almost like a new person out of you. This life power responds in some strange way to your beliefs, your mental attitudes, and your expectation. Look around you. You see very little life flowing in some people, and other people who are radiating. They're just radiant with life, life flowing energy. Remove the resistance in your life and live more vibrantly, more wonderfully, more powerfully. Bob Proctor said, destiny is no matter of chance, it is a matter of choice. It's not a thing to be waited for, it is a thing to be achieved. You have tremendous creative potential. What would you create in your life? There are infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and you are an infinite spark of divine energy residing in your body. Your body is simply an instrument, and this power is flowing to and through you, and you can create whatever you want. Everything that you see around you was once an idea that was conceived in someone's imagination. All images that originate in the imagination are referred to as fantasies. What do you think about that you would love to bring about in your life that is just a fantasy? And if you tell your dream goal to someone, they might call you crazy. They might say, quit fantasizing, quit daydreaming. Have you ever flown on an airplane? Have you ever gone on a trip and taken an airplane to get there? Flying airplanes was a fantasy at one time. The vehicle that you're driving started out as a fantasy, and then it was built in a factory. But not that many years ago, fantasies, automobiles were fantasies. It took people like Henry Ford, who other people say were absolutely crazy, that you're going to put horsepower into an engine, into this contraption that's going to move you around on four wheels with a steering wheel. That was a fantasy. Now you can pick whatever you want, any kind of shape and color and power, and drive around as much as you like. Do you fantasize about something that is not yet a reality? When I was a child, there was no such thing as cell phones and internet. No one had laptop computers. Computers took up entire floors in buildings. Now you might be wearing a watch that has more power in it than some of those computers. What do you fantasize about? To exercise your imagination, which is a beautiful creative faculty that you have been gifted by the Creator, and you are co creating your life instead of co creating your life by replaying the past and limiting beliefs, limiting yourself to what other people think you can do. Why not let your fantasies have some life? Play with your fantasies until you start to take them seriously. And then you can flip using your imagination to start using your reasoning factor. That's another one of your intellectual faculties. And then you can start to build the idea more clearly. That's where the image turns into a theory in your conscious mind. You decide, what would you love to have show up in your world? What would you prefer if you stopped resisting and just allowed it to happen? What would it be like? What kind of trip would you go on? What kind of automobile would you drive? Where would you fly? What would you use the internet to accomplish? And what could you create that is just an idea in your mind instead of talking yourself out of it? Oh, it was just an idea. What if you started to really think about it, spend some of your precious time instead of worrying and doubting and fearing, thinking about what it would be like to bring that vision into physical reality. Because everything starts that way. Everything starts in the mind, in your imagination, as an idea. And then when it's focused on, when it's planned out and action is taken, it turns into physical being. So, what kind of fantasy, what kind of vision do you have that you could decide you're going to make it happen? You're going to turn it into a goal. You're going to make it a target. This I will do. You must ask yourself two questions. First of all, what is it that you really, really, really want? And then, am I able to do this? When you take into consideration that the only two sources of reference we have to go to are science and theology with respect to human potential, they both clearly indicate that your potential is infinite. So if there are infinite possibilities and you have infinite potential, of course the answer must be an emphatic yes. I am able to do this. And then the question becomes, am I willing? Am I willing to do whatever is required to cause the image in my mind to manifest in physical form in my life? How badly do you want it? You have a vision, you have an idea, you have something that you really want. You have a deep desire, and you understand that you are infinite. You have infinite potential. There are infinite possibilities. And then when you decide, yes, that's what I'm going to do, that fantasy becomes a theory. You turn it into a goal, a destination. And then because you are willing and able to do whatever it takes, your theory becomes a goal, and you turn that goal over to the universal subconscious mind. And the laws of the universe kick in. And the first law, perpetual transmutation, takes over, and your goal begins to move into physical form with and through you. If you've got your journal or a piece of paper in front of you, grab a pen and write down something that your heart desires, something that you've been fantasizing about, thinking about, and maybe talking yourself out of because it seems too much, too big. But if you knew that there was a way, you knew that it was possible, you knew that you could not fail, and you started to believe that whatever it takes, you will attract the people, the money, the resources, every situation and circumstance you will go through in order to make your goal a reality, to live the life that you desire. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be purposeful work, leaving a legacy, changing something about your world that you would enjoy it more, spending more time with loved ones, having more money to treat your loved ones to whatever they desire, or just for yourself. What would you prefer? Would you like a little more luxury in your life? Would you like to be able to give more money to your favorite charity, or do something to solve a problem? When you write it down and spend time thinking about what it would feel like, how happy you would be, how healthy you would be, how respected and loved, how much easier life would be if this was really your true physical reality. The laws of the universe kick in. You start to get ideas and you start to take different action. And as you take different actions, you get a different reaction. New results show up. Things change. You change your behavior and you start to attract to you all things that are required for the manifestation of the image you're holding in your mind. Before long, your theory becomes a fact, and that's how everything has been accomplished. You get an idea, you take action, it becomes physical reality, it becomes true. It's no longer just an idea. That idea starts to change the chemistry in your body. It changes the action that you take. We're not flying in airplanes because somebody magically waved a magic wand and ping, there was an airplane. No, we had to go through periods of trial and error and building pictures, putting things together, trial and error. When you have an idea, you will have some stumbling blocks. You will have some challenges. If it was easy, you'd already have it by now. If it was simple, everyone would be doing it. You have been gifted with potential. The reason you're not using it is because you're resisting. You're giving all kinds of excuses and reasons and looking at the problem instead of the solution. What if you changed your perspective? Bob Proctor talks about perspective being another one of your highest intellectual faculties. Stephen Hawking said, I believe everyone should have a broad picture of how the universe operates and our place in it. It is a basic human desire. It also puts our worries into perspective. When you compare your problem to the universe, it's not even a speck of dust. You might think your problem is gigantic, huge, major, but look around at the world. Your problems aren't so big. Every person takes the limits of his own field of vision and believes that that is the limits of the world. William Blake said, if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to mankind as it is, infinite. Bob Proctor wrote this piece while he was flying. He said, 37,000 feet above the beautiful state of Kentucky, I was traveling to Toronto from Nashville, doing something I frequently do when I'm traveling. I was looking down, quietly thinking of how different everything looks from up in the air, 37,000 feet. Suddenly, I remembered a magnificent story I had heard years ago on a motivational record. It was a story that was very much in harmony with my present thoughts. The author was referring to a poem written by Don Blanding called The God's Eye View. Apparently, Blanding wrote the poem while he was flying as well. The speaker on the motivational record made a reference to an ancient Persian proverb about a bug in a rug, and he related the God's eye view to a bug's eye view. If the bug could have raised itself above the Persian rug, he would have seen that what he considered enormous problems were actually something beautiful, something finely woven. Had he raised himself even higher, he would have seen that the finely woven tuft was a necessary part of a truly magnificent pattern in the rug. Bob Proctor said, as I looked down on Kentucky, this story slipped across my mind. I've thought many times that we live so much like the bug in the rug, pushing and shoving from one problem to the next in search of crumbs, complaining about life and how tough it is as we go through our days. If we could relax and objectively raise ourselves above our problems, something that poor bug isn't mentally capable of doing, we would see our life from a completely different perspective. If you happen to become overwhelmed today, a little uptight, the cause of your problem is probably the bug's eye view. Relax and mentally switch on the God's eye view. See how magnificent life really is. Bob would say, every time I hear about Murphy's Law, I think how negative it is. If something can go wrong, it will. What a depressing way to look at life. And yet, unfortunately, that law is at work in the lives of so many people. Wouldn't it be nice if there was some way we could prevent that law of Murphy's from affecting us? Well, there is. And Bob Proctor teaches it, and I facilitate his programs because it changes lives. Make up your mind to use the flip side of the coin, the opposite of Murphy's Law. Everything is an opposite. Everything has an opposite. And here it is. If something can go right, it will. He called that Proctor's Law. Now, the trick is to figure out how to get this beautiful law working in our lives instead of, if something can go wrong, it will. What if you decide that you focus on your beautiful goal, and if it can go right, it will go right? If you study the writings of a great German literary giant, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, you will find the answer. The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help a person that would never have otherwise occurred. A whole stream of events ensues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance which no one could have dreamed would come their way. If something can go right, it will. Until a person is committed, there is hesitancy and the chance to draw back. And that makes it ineffective. That's why the first thing you must do is decide. Bob Proctor says if you're a student, commit yourself to being an honor student. If you're in sales, commit yourself to having a record month. Whatever you're doing, go all out. Set a goal to go to the top. Get committed, and people will say you're lucky. And remember, if something can go right, it will. I know there's chaos going on all over the world right now, and chaos is inherent in all compounded things. But strive on with diligence. There is no chance, no destiny, no fate that can circumvent or hinder or control the firm resolve of a determined soul. When you decide that you are going after something no matter what, the law of perpetual transmutation of energy comes into play. You start to think from your goal. Use that beautiful imagination of yours to practice what it would be like to be in that place, in that energy, how awesome it would feel, how fantastic your life would be. And you are a powerful creator. Tap into that infinite. Let go of the resistance and open up the current. Sit quietly for a few minutes. Ask the great creator, what can I do today to bring that beautiful picture in my mind into my physical reality? I know everything starts in the mind. I know everything around me was once a fantasy. I know my fantasy will become physical reality. I have the power of the universe at my disposal. As my thoughts, as my feelings, as my actions are aligned with that beautiful picture, I start to do things differently. I start to take different actions. And as I act differently, as I behave differently, as I put out different actions, the universe reacts differently. And everything starts to come to me that I need. Because now, as a radiant being, I am electromagnetically attracting to me all the problems I need to overcome, all the ideas that as I take action, things fall into place. As I take a step, I get closer to the goal. As I step out and do something, I am rewarded. Ask the great creator, what could I do today to bring my goal closer to me? Create a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. Whatever your beautiful goal is, write it down, focus on it, start taking action so that it does come into your physical reality. Turn that fantasy into a goal and then into a fact by getting emotionally involved as if it's already done. Enjoy your day. Thank you for joining me in this morning mindfulness practice. Create a wonderful day. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7. Thank you.